Actually, I'm only here today to make Bernie Sanders an honorary woman.
During a discussion on MSNBC about Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren being on the same debate stage for the CNN debate, Mimi Rocha, who is an MSNBC contributor, gave a real evidence-based analysis of why she does not like Bernie Sanders.
I think, having Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren next to each other will really highlight, because for me, as, again, I'm not the political analyst here, but just as a woman, probably considered a somewhat moderate Democrat, Bernie Sanders makes my skin crawl. And I can't even identify for you what exactly it is, but I see him as sort of a not pro-woman candidate. And so having the two of them there, I don't understand young women who support him. And I'm hoping that having him next to her will help highlight that, because those are the people that if I were her, I would want to say, well, why are you supporting him and not me if you're going to choose between the two of us?
Can you imagine any analyst saying this about any other candidate? I mean, her exact quote, "I can't identify for you exactly what it is." Why Bernie makes her skin crawl. She can't identify why exactly it is. I'm going to get into later maybe the reason why she doesn't like Bernie Sanders. But you would never see this about any other candidate. Imagine somebody up there saying, "I don't like Kamala Harris. I mean, she makes my skin crawl. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but she makes my skin crawl, and she clearly is a horrible candidate because she just gives me this visceral feeling. I feel gross just seeing her on screen." Can you imagine anybody, anybody on television saying that? And by the way, if anybody did say that, they should get shit for it, because it would be ridiculous, just as it's ridiculous them saying the same thing about Bernie Sanders. Now, let me get into just, since this obviously is based in some misunderstanding or lies about Bernie Sanders and women's rights, I'm going to have to dispel all the BS once again on this issue, because the media, in addition to many other narratives about false narratives about Bernie Sanders, this is another one that continues coming up. So first off, let's just address this idea that, oh, Bernie Sanders, only the bros like Bernie. It's all the Bernie bros. Look at any poll, the detailed analysis, the breakdown of any poll, and you will see that that is not true. Let me just give you this this headline here from Business Insider. "The myth of the Bernie bro. Bernie Sanders' supporters are more diverse than the prevailing narrative suggests. The polling actually shows that minorities find Sanders more appealing than white voters, and also found a relatively even gender split in terms of how voters view the Vermont senator." So, equal women and men like Bernie Sanders, more people of color or more minorities like Bernie Sanders than white people do. So, again, you can look at any poll in the breakdown and you will see that in the numbers. But let's also just address this idea that, oh, Bernie is anti-woman because he makes my skin crawl. I can't tell you exactly why, but he makes my skin crawl, and he's definitely anti-woman. Let's break down some of the facts. So this from Sarah Ford. Bernie is a lifetime pro-choice record. He's vowed to only nominate judges who uphold Roe. Fought for equal pay for equal work his entire career. Co-sponsoring the Paycheck Fairness Act. Set the standard for 12 weeks of family leave. Now, sure, those are facts, but these facts are shared by Sarah Ford, who was on Bernie's communications team. So, I mean, we can't possibly trust that, right? So let's just dig maybe a little deeper. How about we go back to 1972, the year before Roe v. Wade? What did Bernie say about a woman's right to choose at that time? Quote, "It strikes me as incredible that politicians think that they have the right to tell a woman what she can or cannot do with her body," Sanders told the Bennington Banner on September 1st, 1972. "This is especially true in Vermont, where we have a legislature which is almost completely dominated by men." The opinions Sanders expressed to the Vermont newspaper were highly unpopular at the time, according to U.S. surveys. So, back in 1972, a year before Roe v. Wade, a year before a woman's right to choose became legal, Bernie Sanders thought it was insane that this was even a debate, that obviously women should have the right to choose. And his opinion at that time was not popular. showing you again one of the many issues that Bernie Sanders has been a leader on. Now, just to contrast that, what was Joe Biden saying at the time? So this is Joe Biden's comments a year after Roe v. Wade. So 2 years after that Bernie Sanders comment. Senator Biden in 74. I don't think that a woman has the sole right to say what should happen to her body. Now, anyone that's done any research at all on Joe Biden already knows about this quote, but a lot of people, as we see in the press, don't know. Nobody's educating them on it. Let's also now go to 1998, where Bernie was quoted in the Burlington Free Press, and he claimed that health insurance is actually biased against women. Quote, currently, the women of reproductive age spend 68% more in out-of-pocket healthcare costs than do men. Much of this gap is due to reproductive health-related supplies and services. Sanders in 1998 calling for contraceptive coverage in drug prescription insurance. Now, this is actually just one of many examples that I pulled out from this long thread from Davis Tom here. So I'm going to link to this thread below because it shows you many more examples of Sanders standing up for women's rights throughout his career. So you can check out that link if you want to read more from his research on this. But let's also just go to this. I mean, this is back in the 90s when Gloria Steinem made Bernie Sanders an honorary woman.
I am very pleased now, and in fact honored, that a woman has come to the state of Vermont to stand with me today and to stand with all of you, who has played such an outstanding role for so many years in fighting not only for women's rights, but for social justice for all people in this country, who has held the banner high that says that America and our government is supposed to work for all and not just the wealthy and the powerful. Today, it is easy to be for women's rights. It's a popular position in many respects, but not all. But 20 or 30 years ago, it was a lonely position. So let's welcome to the state of Vermont today somebody who is a pathbreaker, somebody who opened up doors that had been closed, somebody who has shown enormous courage. Let's welcome Gloria Steinem. Thank you.
Actually, I'm only here today to make Bernie Sanders an honorary woman. And to congratulate him for having survived the 104th Congress.
So it wasn't even just what Bernie was doing and saying at the time. It was also how other people, leaders in women's rights like Gloria Steinem, what they were saying about Bernie at the time as well. Now, let's go to modern day. So we focus a lot on the history. Clearly, Bernie has a solid history on women's rights. But modern day, if you go to opinion pieces on what Bernie is doing, again, even people that are critical of him are showing you or telling you that Bernie is clearly a women's rights candidate. So this opinion from Arwa Madawi in The Guardian. Bernie Sanders is the most feminist 2020 candidate as far as I'm concerned. Sanders is far from perfect, but it is ridiculous to claim that he is beloved purely by arrogant white bros. Here's the thing. Universal health care is a feminist issue. Widening access to education is a feminist issue. A foreign policy that doesn't involve constantly bombing other countries is a feminist issue. Refusing to cozy up to Saudi Arabia is a feminist issue. Calling out Israel for its treatment of Palestinians is a feminist issue. As far as I'm concerned, Sanders is the most feminist candidate in the race. Nevertheless, as the primaries progress, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more about how he just doesn't get women. And that article was from April. Notably prophetic here, as we've seen a lot about Bernie Sanders and him not liking women or doesn't get women, even though all the evidence shows otherwise. So why is there all this bashing? Why is the media, when they do mention Bernie, which is rare, when they do mention him, oftentimes they are attacking him. They're smearing him. Why is that? Well, just in general, the obvious point is that Bernie actually threatens their power and their wealth. So when it comes to these massive media companies who, you know what, maybe don't want to pay their employees higher wages, maybe are afraid of unions, maybe don't want to give voice to the people and voice to basically an entire movement that is threatening their status, their wealth, their power, you can understand why Bernie is threatening to them and why they would have a certain angle when they discuss him. Same with his threat to the Democratic consultant class. You have all these Democratic consultants largely on television. These are the people that are hired by other campaigns to help run their campaigns. Well, Bernie doesn't rely on the standard Democratic consultant class because the standard Democratic consultant class is built within this capitalist framework, within this corporate framework. So he is a threat to that as well. But in addition, why doesn't Mimi Rocha, this analyst on MSNBC and a former federal prosecutor, why doesn't maybe she like Bernie Sanders? This from David Sirota. Counterpoint. Maybe the thing that should actually make your skin crawl is the fact that Mimi Rocha's Southern District of New York did not prosecute any major bank executives who were involved in the financial crisis that destroyed millions of lives. Showing you what side of this divide Mimi Rocha is on. Not on the side of the people. I mean, how many Americans do you think, if you put this question to them, do you think it was fantastic that no major bank executives on Wall Street went to jail over the financial crisis? If you ask the American people, what side do you think they'll be on this issue? So these are the people that are on television telling you the news, telling you what to think. These people that are in these circles that do not have your best interests at heart, these are the people trying to tell you who to vote for. Now, the other thing that scares them is that Bernie Sanders, despite all their smears, is still incredibly popular. This from Newsweek. Sanders tops Democrats' list of most liked 2020 candidates from a Gallup poll. So really, smearing Bernie Sanders is all they have. That's their objective here, is to get these numbers down, is to affect voters. And I think largely it can be effective. I mean, if you are a dedicated MSNBC viewer, you see the world through their eyes. They're informing you. They're your main source, MSNBC, CNN, these mainstream outlets that largely sit on the side of the corporations, of any candidate that is willing to uphold the status quo and smear people that are trying to really challenge the powerful and the wealthy and the establishment. If that's where you get your information from, yeah, you're going to have a skewed worldview that is not the correct one, that is skewed towards people that are on television, that want to uphold their power, their money, their greed. So this is their only course. I mean, this is what they have to do to try and swing voters. Now, let me just give you, to end on, some other reactions from around the internet about Bernie Sanders and or really in reaction to Mimi Rocha's comments here. So this from Linda Sarsour. This woman doesn't speak for me. You don't have to like Bernie. That's cool with me. But don't lie and say Bernie isn't pro-woman. He has been a consistent champion for women for decades. This is so dishonest. Brianna Joy Gray. If we want to open this door, as a black woman, there's a thing or two that makes my skin crawl about many other candidates. And they're based on substantive policy decisions, not poorly articulated squicky feelings. As a progressive, I support Bernie Sanders. This from Ana Lilia Mejia. I'm completely disgusted by this. Maligning a person without fact or merit is one thing. But to then say Bernie Sanders is anti-women? Based on what? Last I checked, women went to college, needed health care, needed better wages, a safer environment, justice and fairness. And this from Katie Halper. Imagine this scenario. Sanders supporter goes on MSNBC and says, quote, Warren makes my skin crawl, end quote. That person would be banned for life by MSNBC and presented as representative of Sanders and all of his supporters. Then imagine if that person cried victim. Which is exactly, of course, what happened with Mimi Rocha. So this is almost like it's part of the whole strategy here. Is they go on television, they lie, make something up, or express their feelings without any actual evidence. And then when they're called on that, they go and cry about it. Oh, the Bernie bros are coming after me. I'm being attacked because I criticized their favorite candidate. No, you're being criticized because you lied. Because you don't know anything. You are spreading misinformation to millions of viewers. If I did that and I was criticized, I would understand it. I would not go crying. In fact, if I was criticized and I was wrong about something, I would be open and admit it. But people like this that are on television making millions, who have never been on the side of people, are able to go on television, spread countless amounts of misinformation, smear Bernie or whoever they don't like, and then cry about it when they're called on it. Honestly, it's just, this whole thing is completely disgusting. And we're going to continue seeing these sorts of smears because, as I said, this is all they have.